questions on data sufficiency. Directions for answering question number 1 to 5 are: each of the questions below consists of a question and two statements numbered 1 and 2 given below. You have to decide whether the data provided in the statements are sufficient to answer the question or not. Read both the statements and give the answer. Answer will be A if the data in statement 1 alone is sufficient to answer the question, while the data in statement 2 alone is not sufficient to answer the question. Answer will be B if the data in statement 2 alone is sufficient to answer the question, while the data in statement 1 alone is not sufficient to answer the question. C will be the option if the data either in statement 1 alone or in statement 2 alone is sufficient to answer the question. D will be the answer if the data in both statements 1 and 2 together is not sufficient to answer the question. And E will be the answer if the data in both statements 1 and 2 together is sufficient to answer the question. So let's take the first question. What is the color of milk? This is the first question. So the first statement is, in a certain code, language green is called blue, blue is called sky, sky is called white, white is called pink, and pink is called milk. And second is, in a certain code language, pen is called blue, blue is called milk, and milk is called water, and water is called white. So let's analyze these statements and see what is the correct answer. Here we have to find the color of milk, and from the first statement, color of milk is white, and from the first statement, white is called pink. So that means color of milk is pink. So A is the correct answer for the first question. That means data in statement 1 alone is sufficient to answer the question, while the data in statement 2 alone is not sufficient to answer the question. Let's do question number 2. How many students are there in the class? The first statement is, number of disqualified students is 50% of that of the qualified students. Second, Nitesh ranks 12th from the top and 21st from the bottom among the qualified students. So from second statement, we can see Nitesh ranks 12th from the top and 21st from the bottom among the qualified students. So here we can write that from statement 2 we have total number of qualified students will be 12 plus 21 minus 1. So this will be 12 plus 21 minus 1. This is equal to 32. And from the first statement, number of disqualified students is 50% of that of qualified students. So here we can write that from statement 1, disqualified student is 50% of qualified students, that is 32. So number of disqualified students will be 16. This implies total number of students in the class will be qualified student, that is 32, plus disqualified students, that is 16. So this is equal to 48. So here in this question, we've made use of both statements 1 and 2 in answering the question. So E is the correct option. That means both statements 1 and 2 together are sufficient to answer the question. Let's do question number 3. Among A, B, C, D and E, who is the shortest? So first option is B is shorter than only E, and second option is C is taller than D but shorter than A. So for solving this question, we can see that there are 5 individuals here, and B is shorter than only E. So E only is taller than B. That means we'll write E here. E is taller than B, and rest here we will have all will be shorter than B. So we can write this 1, write this 2, write this and 3. So there are a total of 5 candidates. Next, it is given that C is taller than D. So C is taller than D but shorter than A. So C is shorter than A. So that means A is taller than C. So this also we have here. A is taller than C is taller than D. So these three can be filled here. So finally we have E is taller than B. B is taller than A, is taller than C, is taller than D. So finally we have the shortest one is D. So here also E is the correct option. Data in both statements 1 and 2 together is sufficient to answer the question. Question number 4. Are all 5 friends P, Q, R, S and T sitting around a circular table facing the center? And statement 1 is P sits second to the right of Q, Q faces the center, S and T are immediate neighbors of each other, R sits second to the right of T. And second option is S sits second to the right of R, R faces the center, both T and P are immediate neighbors of S, Q sits second to the right of P. Let's analyze the statements. From first statement we have, let's draw a circular table. It is given here, P sits second to the right of Q, Q faces the center. So let this be the position of Q. Q is facing towards center and P sits second to the right of Q. So one position this and one position this. So this will be the position of P. S and T are immediate neighbors of each other. So it is given that S and T are immediate neighbors of each other. So this will be the position of S and this can be the position of T. And it is also given R sits second to the right of T. Now only one position is left and that is this position. So this will be R. And here R can only sit second to the right of T if T is facing towards the center. So this is, let's say, case A from 1. From 1 we can have one more case, that is case B, where if we have a circle here, this is Q facing towards the center, this is given, this is R, this is P, and the second case we can have T in this position and S in this position. Now we want to have R sits second to the right of T. Now in this case it is only possible if T is facing outwards. So from 1 we can know the orientation of T and Q, but we cannot say anything about P, R and S. Let's take from second condition. Let's draw a circle here. S sits second to the right of R, R faces the center. So this is R, R is facing the center and S is sitting second to right of R. So this can be S. T and P are immediate neighbors of S. So this can be T, this can be P. Q sits second to the right of P. So Q is sitting second to the right of P. So this can be Q. And Q can only sit towards right of P if P is facing outwards. So from here we can know the orientation of P and R only. We cannot say anything about the orientation of rest of 3. So here the correct option will be D. Data in both statements 1 and 2 together is not sufficient to answer the question. Let's do question number 5. Point W is in which direction with respect to B? First statement given is point L is at equal distance from both points W and point B. And second, it is given walking 10 kilometers towards east from point W and taking 2 consecutive right turns. On taking 2 consecutive right turns, he walks 10 kilometers after each turn and reaches point B. Let's analyze statement 1. That means from statement 1 we have point L is at equal distance from both points W and point B. So from here, we do not know any directions. So no directions from here. So we do not get anything from point 1. Let's take point 2. So from second statement, we will have, second statement says walking 10 kilometers towards east from point W. So if this is point W, here we are walking 10 kilometers eastwards and taking 2 consecutive right turns. He walks 10 kilometers after each turn. So first right turn will be here. This is 10 kilometers. And second right turn will be here. This is also 10 kilometers. He reaches point B. So we can very clearly see with respect to point B, W is in north direction. So here the option B is the correct answer, that data in statement 2 alone is sufficient to answer the question, while the data in statement 1 alone is not sufficient to answer the question. Let's do question number 6 to 10. Each of the questions below consists of a question and 2 statements numbered 1 and 2 given below it. You have to decide whether the data provided in the statements is sufficient to answer the question. Read both the statements and give answer. Answer is option A if the data in statement 1 alone is sufficient to answer the question, while the data in statement 2 alone is not sufficient to answer the question. Answer is option B if the data in statement 2 alone is sufficient to answer the question, while the data in statement 1 alone is not sufficient to answer the question. Answer is option C if the data either in statement 1 alone or in statement 2 alone is sufficient to answer the question. Answer is option D if the data in both statements 1 and 2 together is not sufficient to answer the question. And answer is option E if data in both statements 1 and 2 together is necessary to answer the question. So based on these directions, let us solve question number 6 to question number 10. Let's do question number 6. What is the code for white paper? And statement 1 given here is paper is black is written as 281 and black night is written as 86. Pen are white is written as 943 and pen and paper is written as 372. Based on these 2 statements, we have to ascertain, can we find the code for white paper? Let's try to solve this question. From statement 1 we have paper is black. So this is the code which is given in statement 1. Paper is black is coded as 281 and black night. So black night is coded as 86. Now we can see that in these 2 sentences, black is common. And between 281 and 86, 8 is common. So we can conclude from here that black stands for 8 and this is black night and 86 here. Now black is standing for 8, then night will stand for 6. So here we can write night stands for 6. Now let's take the case of second statement. According to second statement, pen are white is written as 943. So pen are white. This we are getting from second statement. This is written as 943 and also pen and paper is written as 372. In second statement we can see that pen and pen is common and between 943 and 372, 3 and 3 is common. So from here we can infer that pen stands for 3 And for the sake of convenience, let me just number these equations. So we can call this as first, this as second, this as third, and this as fourth. And if we look at this equation 1 and this equation 4, here we have paper is black and here we have pen and paper. So we can see that paper is common here. So paper is common between the two. And here if we look at the numbers, we have 281 here and 372 here. So this 2 is also common. So we've got one more thing, that paper stands for 2. But ultimately we have to find what is the code for white paper. Now we have the code for paper, but we can't say anything about white paper because here we have R white. So R white will correspond to 9 and 4, but we do not know R corresponds to which number and white corresponds to which number. So that means from here we cannot find the code for white paper. That means from here we cannot find the code for white paper neither from statement 1 nor from statement 2 and not even if we combine statements 1 and 2. So when such is the case, then option D is the correct option. That means data in both statements 1 and 2 together is not sufficient to answer the question. Let's take question number 7. Let's see what we have here. P, Q, R, S and T are sitting in a straight line facing north. So all are facing north. Who sits at the extreme ends of the row? So this is what we have to try to find from the statements, that who sits at the extreme ends of the row. First statement is Q is an immediate neighbor of S and T. Neither S nor T sits at the extreme ends of the row. And statement 2 is P sits second to the left of Q, who sits second to the left of R. Let's solve this question. Let's see what we can get from statement 1. So, from statement 1 we will obtain, as we can see that in the question there are 5 candidates. So we can have 5 places, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it is given that Q is an immediate neighbor of S and T. And neither S nor T sits at the extreme end. So if we have suppose that Q is sitting here, then immediate neighbor means that at this position we can have S or T, and at this position also we can have S or T. And for these two positions, that means at the extreme, this position and this position, we can have P or R, and here also we can have P or R. Before going to the statement second, we can see here that from statement 1 we can conclude that at the extreme ends P and R are sitting. So from statement 1 we can get that at extreme ends P and R, these two candidates are sitting, and this is what we have to find out in the given question. So from statement 1 we can get the right answer. Now let's move over to statement 2. For statement 2 also, let's make 5 positions. These are the 5 positions, and it is given P sits second to the left of Q. So let us suppose that if Q is here, then it is being said that P sits second to the left of Q. So that means to the left of Q will mean in this direction, and P is second to the left of Q. That means we can have P here, and then it is said P sits second to the left of Q, who sits second to the left of R. That means Q is second to the left of R. That means we have R here. And these two positions, that means this position and this position, can be filled by S or T, and this position also can be filled by S or T. So from statement 2 also we can get who are sitting at the extreme ends. So from here we are getting that extreme ends, these positions are being occupied by P and R. So here we can see that from statement 1 also we can arrive at the answer, and from statement 2 also we can arrive at the answer. When such is the case, then option C is the correct option. That means if the data either in statement 1 alone or in statement 2 alone is sufficient to answer the question. Let's try question number 8. There are 3 friends X, Y and Z. All of them have a different profession, that is CA, HR and manager. So what we have to find here is that who is HR among them. So this we have to find or ascertain who is a HR among them. So we know that X, Y and Z have different professions, and these different professions are CA, HR and manager, but we do not know which one has which profession. And statement 1 here is X is a CA in a company but Z is not a manager. And statement 2 is Y is either HR or manager and Z is either CA or HR. Let's solve this question. Let's see what we can get from statement 1. From statement 1 we can get that X is definitely CA. So X is CA and Z is not a manager. So Z is not a manager. Definitely Z is not a CA also. Then we are left with only one option. That means Z is HR. Then we are left with Y. Now X is CA, Z is HR. That means Y is manager. So Y is manager from here. So that means from statement 1 we can know what is X, what is Z, what is Y. Now let's move over to statement 2. From statement 2 we have Y is either HR or manager. So Y can be HR or manager. He can be either of the two. And Z can be either CA or HR. That means we cannot know anything from statement 2. So here, statement 1 alone is sufficient to answer the question. So when such is the case, then option A is the answer. That means if the data in statement 1 alone is sufficient to answer the question, while the data in statement 2 alone is not sufficient to answer the question. Let's do question number 9. Who among the 5 friends, Suraj, Taj, Mahmood, Vikram and Bhairav is the youngest? And these are the statements which are given. First is Bhairav is older than 3 of them, but Suraj is younger than Mahmood. And the second statement is Taj is older than Vikram and Bhairav. Let's analyze these statements and let's see how we can find that who is the youngest of the 5 friends. So let's see what we get from statement 1. So from statement 1 we get Bhairav is older than 3 of them. So here we have Bhairav and he is older than 3 of them. So these are the 3 from whom Bhairav is older, and it is also given that Suraj, so this is also given that Suraj is younger than Mahmood. So Suraj is younger than Mahmood. This is we have from statement 1, and from statement 1 we cannot know who is the youngest. Then let's move over to statement 2. From statement 2 we have Taj is older than Vikram and Bhairav. So Taj is older than Vikram and Bhairav. So this is Vikram and this is Bhairav. Here, from statement 2 also, we cannot know who is the youngest. And if we combine statements 1 and 2 also, then also we cannot know who is the youngest. When such is the case, then option D is the correct answer. That means data in both statements 1 and 2 together is not sufficient to answer the question. Let's do question number 10. According to question number 10, what is the code for book in a code language? And statement 1 says, in that language, pick tick rick means I like reading and mick neck beck feck means this book is interesting. And second is, in the same language, pick tick mick rick means I like reading book and mick juk pan means you read book. Let's see what we can obtain from statement 1 here. So from statement 1 we have this and this. We can call these as first and second. So from second we can say that code for book is, it can be mick or neck or beck or feck. It can be any of the four. Let's see what we obtain from second. And this is what we have from statement 2. And in statement 2 we can see that if we call this as third and this as fourth, in 3 and 4 we can see here that book is common. And here we can see that mick is common. So from second we can say that mick will correspond to book. So that means from second statement we can get the answer. That means B is the correct option here. That means if the data in statement 2 alone is sufficient to answer the question, while the data in statement 1 alone is not sufficient to answer the question.